Hi, everybody. Welcome to SIFF Film Festival. My name is Tracy Rector. I'm the Indigenous Content Programmer, and it's so exciting to be with you to celebrate the 47th year of the festival with the screening of Waikiki. I would like to first thank the sponsors for their support, and especially for this specific film. And the sponsors are Nia Taro, as well as Indigenex. And why did I choose Waikiki? Well, first off, I just heard so much about this film on the socials, and a number of friends shared with me about how blown away they were with this film. And then also just knowing a few people who worked on the project made me super curious. And when I watched it, I had to immediately watch it a second time because there's just so much to take in. It's not only beautiful, but it's nuanced. And so I'm excited for everybody who gets a chance to see it as part of the film festival. And now I would like to introduce to you the filmmaker. Um,
Aloha.
Aloha. Christopher, can you please introduce yourself and your film?
Hi, I am Christopher Kahunahana. I am the writer and director of Waikiki. It was a passion project that I've been working on for a long time. I've been actually trying to get a film made for close to 20 years, and this one finally came together. And I'm so happy to have been able to do this film as my debut film. And I hope you
Mm,
enjoy it. I hope you have a chance to see it and enjoy it.
right on. Like I said, the film, when I watched it the first time, I immediately watched it again. I was just so struck by um, everything about it, the pacing, the composition of the shots, but also what I most likely missed because I was so just drawn in. Can you talk about how you decided to come to the story? And I guess I feel that it's such a special approach um, that I'm just interested in hearing from you.
Yeah, so that was actually kind of one thing that was difficult with this particular film was it's layered. So we have this thing in Hawaii uh, called kauna, which is layers of meaning. So it's poetic. So I wanted it to be able to read on multiple levels. So if you didn't understand what was going on currently in Hawaii, or you're not Hawaiian and you're not Kanaka and you don't connect to it in the spiritual sense, you would at least be able to follow, the plot, the narrative, the story. And all along the way, it kept getting pushed farther to plot and farther away from being, kind of its own thing. And, there was a balance, except kept adding more strangeness in it, or, what I felt we could show more of the spiritual aspects of her character and connection to the land. And, at one point we've even had notes where they said you should take out all reference to nature, and they said that kind of felt just like separate from the main plot. And I always thought that was the wrong approach. So, in the editing process, I worked with some great editors, and uh, Black Horse, Kate Hackett, Nick Stone, myself.
Yeah.
We always kept trying to bring more of it in. So we'd edit to get the narrative settled, and then we'd add in a little bit more obscurities until we felt those were right balance. But every time we'd add more of the nature aspects of it, it we the story would change. So they say often that a film is made three times, authored three times. Once when it's written, once when it's shot, and then again when it's edited. And that couldn't be more true for this particular project. The screenplay and the final product are completely not the same film. Not at all. Not at all. I think we ended up probably cutting close to a quarter or near half of all the scenes we shot. And
Oh,
because it was just too much. I mean, there's so much that we could have included, and we kept refining it and trying to figure out what was the most important aspects of the story, so that people could get it on multiple levels without, getting confused and getting lost. And I mean, people still do. Sometimes they still like, I don't know who that person was. Who was that person? I always say, like, what person?
Oh, tricky.
I was like, what person? we all don't have that wool character in our life, that person that we bounce some of our darker fears off of, and also they also comfort us in a way. So
Mhm.
it was tricky
The-
to.
Oh, mhm.
No, go ahead. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
I was gonna say, it feels as though your pacing brings us into that space because the beginning's very different than where
Yeah,
we move to.
yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely. Like, I think what we realize is that the first half kind of moves in like a real straightforward, moment to moment kind of film, and then the second half we kind of allowed ourselves to just get more experimental, and we spend more time, spend half the time in our head and half the time in reality. And I wanted to be able to blend those two elements so that it would feel, someone how that character feels. So for her, it's all reality. It's like that is her reality. And I think by allowing the audience to follow along on a real standard type of progression, they would get confused and when things started to get blurred. And I thought that was kind of what we were working for, to allow people to see the world through Kaya's eyes.
Mhm. Was her character based on someone that you know, or um,
Oh,
like
she's
a
like a
personal?
combination of like every single person, uh woman, my sisters, my mother, my girlfriends, everybody here. It's unfortunate, but so many people experience violence, intergenerational trauma, and physical assault. Just it's not. I mean, I think a lot of those things for us, we know where they come from. It's because we still suffer under a colonial system that doesn't necessarily value who we are as people. And, sometimes they take some of the elements of our culture that they feel they can market and,
Mhm.
use to sell real estate or an experience. But at the same time, they disregard the fact that, we're intimately connected to the land. And if you take the people away from the land, it's not like you're just like, we're not people on land. We're the same thing. So it's like if you lose half of your body or half of your spirit, how do you move forward, right? So it's like we can't just like change the way we are and like fit into a system that ultimately sees land as a commodity for exploitation, or extraction. And for us, it's so foreign. It's a foreign concept for us because,
Mhm.
as the Ololo Noeau in the story says, Heali Ka'aina, He Kawa Ke Kanaka is like the life, the land is the chief. The people are its servants, and we see it that way. Our relationship is more than reciprocal. It's like we care for the land. That's our job. And
Mhm.
so, as Hawaii suffers from like the highest cost of living in the nation, the highest rate of homelessness in the nation. I think our median home price is ridiculous, but it just hit like $950,000 is the median. And as they try, it's unfortunate because they spent so many years marketing Hawaii as a paradise, right? So it's like there's an unlimited global demand for this paradise, and what it does is just prices the people who are connected to the land, prices us out of the market. And it's only getting worse. It's like no one's even addressing the fact that, we have this saying, it's like a bumper sticker saying, but it's like no Hawaiians, no aloha. It's like if you take Hawaiians out, if you take the people away from the land, you think you're going to have a pretty beach, but it's not the same. No one's there to take care of it. So it's our relationship is to care for the land. And so with the film, that's what Kayla's experiencing. She's feeling, experiencing that dislocation and that fractured relationship with our culture. And the only way to truly rehabilitate herself, or or Hawaii in general, is we have to reconnect with our culture and the land. And
Mm.
ultimately, if that doesn't happen, I mean, we can see from the film, I mean, it just doesn't, it leads to, you know, all those social ills that, sometimes the victims of colonization get blamed for, like, we're lazy or whatever. It's like, no, man, that's like, we don't see the world the same way. We don't value things the same way. So
Yeah, the scene where she had saved money to get an apartment, but then there's the cycle of not having, what was it, the credit or the history.
yeah,
And
yeah,
it's just a perfect example of the systemic racism. Just, it's such a vicious cycle.
it is, yeah, it's like credit. I mean, we need it. It's like, to do anything, we exist in this. In some ways, we have to participate. It's like, we can't just, we don't have land where we can just say, hey, I'm just gonna, grow my own food. It's like, where, like, even the farms here have a hard time growing food because of the value of land. It's like, it's much better if they just dig out their crops and, sell. So it's sad. It's sad. It's unsustainable.
And I think that's why the film's timely. I mean, it certainly, it's, I feel important for Kanaka Maoli and other indigenous peoples, and the lessons you're teaching us with reciprocity and that we're not separate from the land. But also for non-indigenous people, it also read to me as it's a warning. This
Yeah.
is like everybody's susceptible to capitalism. Everybody's susceptible to these like diseases of
Mhm.
um, big corporations and greed and so it
Right.
just feels so timely in that way right now.
I think this global pandemic really allowed people, not only in Hawaii but elsewhere, to see, have a moment to step back and look at, like, hey, what's really important? Like, is working 10 hours a day just to pay for an apartment that I never see, so I can go home and shower and sleep. Is that living? Is that what life's about? It's like, when does it end? Like, we work till 65 to get some time off, and it's it's heartbreaking, because I think humans have the capability for so much more. You know,
Mm,
we're not just all, we shouldn't just be seen as contributors to an economic system. It's like, we are nature. We are
yeah.
part of the plan for nature. It's like, we're put here for a purpose, and I don't think it's necessary to work every day. Although, it's like work that you love. It doesn't, it feels, it's difficult. Like, this, making this film was difficult, but it makes you, yeah, you feel so connected to something that's greater than yourself. And that's the
Mm,
thrill and the privilege of getting to make films. It's like, I feel fulfilled in ways that I never could. I grew up here in Hawaii, and like, I was a busboy. I was your busboy, probably, at some point, or your valet, or your dishwasher, or your whatever. And here, the good jobs are, if you get to be a construction worker, we aspire here. Be a construction worker. That's, it's good. They're never going to stop building stuff. Or, firemen. And then it just didn't feel like that was what I'm supposed to be doing. I felt like my skill set was, I love telling stories. I love being able to share these crazy thoughts that I have. And I feel extremely privileged to get to make a film, share a little bit of, things that have been bothering me or weigh heavy on me, and you feel a responsibility to share. It's like, people got to know. It's like, it's not all pineapples and mai tais.
yeah.
People live here. We live here.
Flesh and blood.
I would say, our bones are in these grounds.
Mhm.
Our ancestors are here.
Yeah. Um, Well, tell me some more about, so in some ways it reminds me, and it's a really Western thought, but sorry, but the hero's journey, and then
Mm,
that we need helpers, on our journeys, on our, especially our spiritual journeys. And
mhm.
tell me about that person and how he came to you.
So that's an interesting person. So we don't all have that person. No, yeah, I think he, that character evolved over the course of the editing of the film. At one point, he had bigger, a bigger story, but then we started to realize that his function, that character's function, I think we're talking about the same character. Well, his function was to help her. So she initially wanted to help him, and then through helping him, he was able to, help her in some ways. And I think he was a projection of her potential to become it's like a warning. It's like, hey, you
Mm,
either connect to, yourself as a child and your culture, your kupuna, nature, or what you have is to the other side, which was him, and so he's an interesting one. That one, that one, we had, like I said, we cut so much of the film in the process just to this. That was what's interesting. It's like you set out to tell a story, but the story ends up showing itself to you. It became so much more than it originally was. And I think that's because we just got to meditate with it, like sit with it, and it said, hey, uh, we kind of want to go in this direction. And I think we were wise enough to say, you know what, we should follow our na'au, which is your gut, like your insides. You follow that feeling, because otherwise you end up, you're just making a product. You're not speaking, connecting to uh, generations of Mo'olelo, like, all our stories. Like it's like you're the manifestation of all these thoughts prior to you, and your kupuna give you these ideas. And our kupuna is the land, our kupuna is our ancestors, our elders. And I think luckily we had the right producers that allowed me and my friend my friend
well, yeah.
to figure
I
out,
feel it.
figure out what's the essence of what we're trying to say, like what's the most important thing, like, so.
Yeah, it was interesting how when Will was first hit and the compassion that she had, despite all of her hard edges, and how, in that journey and that reflection, there was also this way that he kept bringing out her compassionate side and that, like that vitality.
Thank you. Yeah, no, he was a great actor.
Yeah.
If you I mean, if you his name's Peter Shinkoda. The actor's name's Peter Shinkoda. And if you ever met Peter in real life, I mean, he's like, if there's a 1 to 10, he's like a 15, like normally. And we'd have exercises where we'd have him come down, bring his energy down, and try and contain his energy. And he did an amazing job.
Yeah. Yeah.
And she's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. She's the powerhouse. So she was a she was a blessing. I was looking for the right actress, and she was in the Kumukuhua local theater group, and I got to see one of her plays, and I just knew she could do this, and she had it in her. And what's great, it's like after we shot this film, we shot it in 2017, 18. So since then, she has been in about 6 or 7 short films, and she hadn't done any film prior to this film. And so I told her, it's not like, I'm like, yes, I did find you in a theater, but it's like you were necessary. It's like everybody was waiting for this type of strong Wahine character that could play all these roles that, uh, they were having a hard time, finding someone to do it. So once they found her, she she's been booked consistently. She's amazing.
It feels like Kanakamali cinema's skyrocketing fast.
Oh yeah, I know. It's like the overnight 20-year, 30-year success. Yeah, I know. It's like there's been so many people pushing so hard for so long. There's so many organizations and the film school, and it's just coming to fruition now where the timing is right. I think people are more open to hearing authentic voices from the communities which they represent. And it's because that happened, I think, on the bigger level on the market, like, hey, we want to hear like what they have to say about their experience. Everyone kind of got tired of seeing people's representations of us as people. And so I think because audiences want to see, hear our stories, and at the same time, funding opportunities and the schools. And um, we've been working on, Hawaii's always been Hollywood's backdrop, backlot. So we've always been around film, so we've learned it, but we never got to creatively lead films. And I think now's the time where we're saying, hey, like, we got all these skills, all of us can do these things. Let's try and say something, make a difference, like, hopefully, you know make something good and people will hear you. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing. The skills are there, the stories are there, and then the number of people lifting each other up is happening too, it
Arc,
seems.
yes. I'm very happy to be part of a really tight-knit community. We all support each other. I mean, everyone, whenever someone's fundraising or needs casting help or locations help, everyone's willing to chip in. And, I think it's it's exciting about where it's going. I foresee at least 2 to 3 feature films from Karakumaoli within the next 2 to 3 years. Like, I just know everyone's at that point.
Mhm. And did I hear it right that yours is the first feature by a Kanaka Maoli person?
It first written and directed.
Okay.
Yeah. So Hawaii has like a strong history of documentary, and I think
Yeah.
oppressed people always first they want to say what they're feeling immediately in a way. It's like, I can go show you, like, that's right out my door. But
Yeah.
then I think it takes a little bit of time to figure out how to creatively put together a fictional narrative. It's so it's like you can do more, but it's also different, right? It's like, and we come from really, really strong documentary filmmaking uh,
Mhm.
from before us. And I think now it's become more accessible too. It's like, people can shoot it on their phones, I guess. I mean, I wouldn't. My phone's really bad, but
The working computer now.
yeah, my DP wouldn't go for that. You know what?
You have some checks and balances.
He's like, "No, no, we're not doing that."
Yeah, I feel just blown away with the success of your film and Kumahina's film and
Oh
Karen
yeah,
Lacey's and Justin Ah Chong, and it's just
Penny, yeah,
yeah,
Alika, Kiara Lacey,
yeah.
Merritt Lau, yeah, Hina, Kapai Mahu. Yeah, there's Justin, Aina. Yeah, there's
All different genres too.
no, it's great. Yeah, it's like we all have such different sensibilities that,
Mhm.
it's like, what's cool too is that you can see some threads of things that we feel, so that we know that these commonalities in our, the stories we choose and the things that affected us, like, we can see that, like, there's a history of these things, right? But it's also because stylistically we're just different, and I think that's the beauty of it. It's like, you know it feels good, it feels great.
Yeah. So it's a common question, but what's your next story?
So that's interesting. I've been attached to a couple of projects that I didn't write, which is interesting because I'm used to not having a story and, having to write something because someone's gonna want me to tell their story. But so I'm considering a few of those things and see we'll see which ones pan out. But personally, I've been working on a sci-fi episodic, uh, indigenous sci-fi episodic set in the near future called Iman. And I imagine it being either a trilogy or a episodic for TV.
Amazing.
No, I love sci-fi. I mean,
Yeah.
this one's not sci-fi, but there's elements of it. It's like I like to be able to sometimes to tell the truth, you have to kind of shade it a little bit. It's like you can see more sometimes if you hide some of it. So I think sci-fi gives you like you can remove yourself somewhat so you don't feel implicated necessarily, so like people won't go like, hey, wait a minute, that's me. Like, no, it's not, it's green. No, that's the power of it, right? It's like it's imaginary, it's not real. And I mean, if you happen to take some things personally, hey, I mean, you have to talk to a therapist about that. Or maybe commune with nature.
Yeah, yeah. Your surrealism is, it feels as though you want to take it farther, at least to Waikiki. I was like,
Oh yeah,
oh, this could go so.
yeah. Oh yeah, that's always been. Everyone's like, hey, hey, hey. I think people are getting lost. I was like, where? They're like about minute two. Like like you got to change. Like I'm like from minute two. I'm like, well, so minute one works. That's awesome. It's my favorite part.
Um, well, we're really excited here in Seattle because we have a huge Hawaiian, Polynesian, Pacifica, Oceanic community here, all of
I
that.
know. I'm
Yeah,
so sad I can't come. I wanted to. I would love to attend, and it's always that's kind of like this year's thing, right? It's
yeah,
like that's everybody feels. It's bittersweet. It's like celebrating getting to show your film to a wider audience, but at the same time, not getting that camaraderie or that networking to get to see other filmmakers and say, hey, what are you working on?
yeah, yeah. Spend time together too. Just
Yeah,
be
yeah,
inspired. Mm,
yeah. Because after you make a film, that's what you want to do is feel inspired, right? Like
yeah.
you do that by being with all these creative individuals. So
Well, where can people find your work? Because I'm sure people are gonna try to look
you
this up.
know,
And
I heard there's this film festival, Seattle International. I heard it's pretty
yeah.
good. Yeah. And then I think that I would see it there for sure. If you don't have a chance to see it at Seattle International Film Festival, we have a website called Waikiki Film, and it has updates on our future screening dates. I think we're gonna re-show. We had the honor of screening as part of the Smithsonian's Mother Tongue Film Festival. So
Oh, nice.
I think we're gonna have an opportunity sometime coming up again. So, but yeah, Waikiki the film pretty much is the best place.
Great. Any other shout outs before we wrap it up?
Well, I'd like to thank all the small people, the little people now. I mean, the many hoonies now. Of course, I'd like to thank all my producers, and I thank Seattle International Film Festival for uh, having the forethought and the vision to include works like ours. Which sometimes when you make films way out in the middle of the Pacific, you don't have any idea on how if it's gonna transfer over, like people are gonna get it or care about our works, and we really appreciate you guys making the effort to include our unique stories. These are authentic stories that we feel intensely, and we're just happy to share it with you.
Right on. Well, thank you, Christopher.
Thank you.
Treat talking with you. And
Oh, yeah, no, this is great. I appreciate it. Yeah.